Good morning. It's 10:41 a.m. on Wednesday, June 17th, 2020 here in Sarasota, Florida. This is a test recording using a new microphone. I've got what's called a pop filter arriving tomorrow to add to it before I start practicing for my first podcast recording. This recording here is going to just be on my YouTube channel. My main mode of sharing for the past 7.5 years. Podcast is like a lot of things in life. From one perspective, having and establishing a new podcast is not at all that big of a deal. From another perspective, it absolutely represents a step up and a shift in my world of work. For me to say that I am not nervous would be a drastic understatement. My preferred mode of operating, if you will, whether I'm recording something or whether I'm living my life, I really enjoy in the now. I like coming together in the now moment and not necessarily rehearsing, practicing, and making something appear a certain way. I mean, it is what it is in that now moment. And I don't really like to fluff anything up to make it appear something that it's not. So there's pauses, so there's imperfections. I just really I gravitate more to just sort of giving it as it is and being real. Therefore, I'm definitely anxious because for at least the first 2 episodes, a great deal of the podcast is going to be, talking about things. There's plenty of others talking about it on in alternative places, but I'm trying to come at it basically with a spiritual foundation. Everything I'm doing has a spiritual foundation. It's based on some underlying assumptions that are all related to spirit, all related to believing there's a shift in consciousness taking place, that we have tremendous opportunity as human beings to begin to break free from the programming that has been present on our planet for so many hundreds of years, and to really tap into a different energy source, if you will, a higher energy source, the one energy source, and go to it directly. I believe we access that sort of through our hearts, as opposed to being heavily reliant on our minds, and our human capacities with our minds are tremendous, but they're still vastly limited. Even the most genius of human beings still cannot even begin to process or comprehend all that is. Therefore, I'm kind of coming at it with very much a spiritual foundation, but wanting to make it as practical as possible, meaning I want to sort of demonstrate it in action. So with Best Damn Reality, we're going to be talking, or my goal is to be, the goal for the first 12 episodes is to introduce Ripple 2020, and the high goal that I have of raising $4 million by $1 increments with Ripple 2020. And the first 11 episodes will be stories shared from more or less, I would say, within the third dimension, the most sort of powerful connections, the most direct and powerful connections that I, Allison, have in the traditional sort of 3D world, where where we see people with more money in a very different way. We see famous people in a very different way. We see professional athletes and professional actors, and even though many folks like myself know that everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time and recognizes that nobody is actually in reality better than better than somebody else. We're all just bringing different skill sets to the table. We do have a society that it's hierarchy based, and the ones at the top are the ones within those systems and that game, if you will, that have, a lot more, generally speaking, influence, a lot more power, a lot more ability to have a far-reaching effect with their words, with their actions, with their efforts. So in an attempt to acknowledge that fact, but not from this glorifying way, just kind of stating it as it is. In the 3D world, people in those, famous people at the hot tops of hierarchies have a lot of influence. And if my little project called Ripple 2020, if that idea is going to spread to 4 million people, it would behoove me to tap into, if I can, a few of the folks in my network that fall into those categories of being powerful in the 3D world. Then I will follow it up after those first 11 episodes. I'll follow it up with stories of, more of who Ripple is tending to benefit, the beneficiaries of Ripple. Who's getting this 4 million? Well, after taxes and such, it's going to be closer to $2.5 million. Because one thing that I have learned, I would say this is iteration number 3 of my original dream. And so during my first episode of my podcast, for which I'm kind of practicing right now, I'm going to talk about how reality, I'm going to bring the spirit, but I'm going to kind of put off delving into really high-level spiritual talk and really kind of keep it more to begin with. I'm trying to entice as many people as possible to open their minds, if they're not already open, to this possibility that we haven't even begun to tap into the human potentiality that's on our planet. With a real live example. So here I'll have this idea, Ripple 2020. It does not yet exist beyond an idea and a framework, and I'm starting to build the beneficiaries, and I'll explain all of this, but it's not something that will happen. It's not going to be successful unless I have many millions of people that get exposed to it, and I don't even really see it as, it's not mine, it's coming through me, but it's really an idea on behalf of the one, if you will. So I really want to turn the focus and the attention onto the project itself, and I believe that the project itself, the whole intention is for it to have this beautiful co-creative, it's going to become our project, not mine, because it's not really all that complicated. It's just having the willingness to put yourself out there, in this case for me to put myself out there, to be the conduit of it, to risk it not working, and as such it being labeled as a failure, which, okay, fine, I've got plenty more ideas. And for some, I think their relationship with money, and it might be like a tough thing to be somebody like to hold on to multiple millions and then part with multiple millions. I don't know, that might trip some people up. That doesn't trip me up, not in any way, shape, or form. There is 100% no doubt in my mind, not an ounce of, like, I haven't even been capable of taking a quarter from somebody in my life without letting them know. Like, I'm not worried. I don't have that concern of any sort of like temptation. I actually feel that somebody that perceives money the way that I do, which is, it's just energy. I can't wait for us to be beyond money. I hope that happens in my lifetime. I don't know that it will, but I do know that there are global efforts, very big projects, and some would say those projects are unveiling right now, there's a transition going on right now, that a lot of the virus is sort of a cover for a huge global transition to happen that basically frees humanity from the pressures of money. But short of that actually being true, I want to keep proceeding with bringing alternative ways of moving resources, sharing resources, coming together as human beings out in the world and meeting needs. That's all work is. We go out into the world and we meet a need. And I, for one, would like to come together more with other individuals rather than with companies or individuals within companies who oftentimes don't have the autonomy or the authority to make final decisions. And a lot of times when you finally do reach somebody who is the decision maker, they've got such pressure to continue within acceptable ranges of, choices and behavior. It's just, in my experience, and I'm 44 years old, so I've been around, I've had a lot of different jobs and a lot of different sort of fields. I have found that, if anything, creativity and out-of-the-box thinking, I certainly haven't landed in a lot of places where I feel like that's really tapped into where it's part of the business model. And in my little business of me, it's a huge part of the business model. Co-creation, out of the box. In fact, I come at it thinking that we've got to believing that we can recreate all of our systems of the mainstream world. Our educational system, our financial system, our economic system, our healthcare system. I think we need a complete revamping of our medical and health and well-being systems, if you will. And I think we drastically, especially in our country, need a revamping of arts and culture. And this little idea of Ripple is an intention. The intention is to serve as an example of what we could do. But it is going to take the spreading of this idea, and it begins with just attention. Physical manifestation is sort of the last piece of how reality clicks in. Everything comes down to consciousness. Consciousness, this like one energy, this that you can't really name, you can't point to. It's not of the five senses. Consciousness is beyond the senses. And in our dimension, the physical aspect of reality is the last thing that clicks in. Something becomes physical once you give all the attention and thought attention and energy, actions and words and taking actions. This is kind of, this is all right. This is all right, Peanut. We'll just keep going. Practice session. This is a practice session. Okay? Okay, so maybe we need to do a little bit more research. But basically, I just want to show, hey, look at what we can do. Look what we can do. You're going to be part of this. As you listen to the stories and get enticed, you're going to get connected to the project, not connected to me, connected to this idea of just expanding how we do things. Throw out the rules and the windows. The only rule is act with love. Treat one another with respect. Act with love, not fear. That's the only rule there is. And everything else, and just be honest, be direct, be honest, be transparent, with what you're aware of, because there's a lot going on of which we're not aware. So we're at 13 minutes. That's not too bad, Peony. I think we're going to do okay with this. Okay, this feels pretty good. We're 17 days away from the day that I want the podcast to go live. Again, in my dream scenario, I'm doing it on that day. I'm doing it live in my dream scenario. But I think for the first month, my goal is to have it recorded, pre-recorded, and simply upload it each Saturday. And so the first episode, we're going to talk a little bit about what the podcast is about, Best Damn Reality. And it's using my life and stories from my life of how I myself am trying to create using, most people, if you live a traditional 9-to-5 job, you're not going to have, generally speaking, the same sort of flexibility that I've created with my life in terms of experiencing something the way I'm experiencing my jobs, because I don't have that set schedule, that routine, one employer. Obviously everything's been thrown on its head with the virus, but I have been on this journey. Ultimately, I don't want the reality I'm trying to create for myself in the most general way that has the balance between the work that I want to be doing and being practical about sustaining myself in our 3D reality. And that reality is I've got to make money to pay bills. And so we're going to have to give a little synopsis of who I am. We'll direct people, if they care, to YouTube. And we'll do that probably for 15 to 30 minutes. Then we're going to discuss how we launched it. And when we started, we paid it forward in about $50,000. And with the help of a close friend at the time, I sort of selected these recipients. Two of them were very close to me, and two others were people I was not super familiar with, but their work, and it was clear to me they were already established in their areas of work, following their passions. They were self-employed, and I believe that passion, love, doing what we love. I want everybody out there to be getting up each day and engaging in the world, doing what they love. That is the way that we increase our chances and the statistical likelihood of having a peaceful world in mass, is trying to make it so that there are plenty of opportunities for people making all sorts of different choices and different paths in their world to do what they love. And given how expensive it is to live in our current paradigm, in our current society, that's a luxury that most people in fact, it's almost drilled out of them in our schooling. It's almost drilled out of you. Look at what the world needs and do that. Don't, God forbid, if you love the arts or if you love something that's not deemed practical by the systems and mainstream world that we're all living in at present. It's almost the creative aspect, the uniqueness of us is something that is programmed out of us from a very young age. Not that anybody is necessarily doing it consciously. It's just a giant momentum of how things have been building. But we know that has not been serving great numbers and segments of our population. And we're at a popping point. So now what do we do with this popping point? Okay, so yes, it needs to change, but how do we do that when we've put all these people in these positions of power supposedly to influence our life? No, you have to remember, we can still go out and make choices on our own. But what that means is you got to be ready to take full responsibility for those choices. You can't be looking to blame somebody else or looking to sue somebody if it doesn't go right. And if you make a mistake and something happens and it doesn't end up as you anticipated or hoped, you've got to be ready to act and go with handshakes and trust and know that things are going to go well and things are not going to go well. And be willing to use your own resources and put your own money where your mouth is and not look for something outside of you to sort of serve as that buffer. That's how real change happens. That's how a society shifts. Be out there acting as an individual and not as somebody that's hiding behind their titles, hiding behind the security of their company, hiding behind the security of all, the money you might have in the bank. It requires you to be willing to go out as an autonomous individual, personally responsible for your own life and willing to act and to get connected with yourself and not look outside of yourself for somebody to tell you what the best choice is. So there's sort of steps in terms of, being able to kind of baby step away from a society where we've elected all these people to create all these laws that we don't really need. Just let people interact with one another and lessen the laws that prevent that. All the tax laws, all that crap. Just let people go out, take their skill sets, take their interests, and exchange. You're either co-creating with somebody, you're exchanging with somebody, or you're sharing with somebody. But it's all energy. We all are a unique being, and it's going to be a lot more fun when we start to watch ourselves make these shifts on our own. This is not something your government can do. This is not something mom or dad can do for you. This is a grown-up. This is for grown-ups who, adults who are out there ready to take responsibility and make their choices. That's who the best damn reality is sort of talking to. So we need to talk a little bit about reality, how we're going to use my own life. Well, actually, the first thing we're going to do, it is going to be geared towards Ripple. And then after the first 12 episodes, this is one, then the 10 stories, then we The 12th episode is with Iron Man, the Iron Man story. And then we're going to reevaluate and we're going to see what happens. We're going to see, I might only have one freaking person listening each week, and that's okay. It's just for myself, it can be intimidating, out in the world of comparison to, look at others and how professional. And I mean, there's a lot of gifted, talented people out in this world. I'm just very openly, very honestly bringing the unique character of Allison Noune. Unique. And I'm living that uniqueness to the greatest extent possible. And I'm working for my entire company of me to be a representation of that uniqueness. Where at any given time, I'm offering myself and trying to share what skills, what knowledge, what interests I have, both in a way to work on a project for which somebody else is the leader, and then some projects like Ripple 2020, I'm the leader. That's the one, that's the one that it's sort of, I'm the player coach for that one. And then when I go out, for example, and work for Iron Man, I'm just the player, right? I'm playing for, a game that's not mine. I don't have any decision making. I'm agreeing to come in, play their game, play by their rules, and I'm getting a paycheck, and I'm okay with that. Although I don't know that it's ever going to be the same with all this virus stuff, so it's going to be interesting. So I want to make sure that I establish in that first episode that it's real. I'm coming to you authentically, genuine, real. In the world, the 3D world, I'm a giant nobody. But I don't see myself as a nobody. I know that there's greatness within all of us. I know that the non-accidental things that have been happening in my life for the past 7.5 years since I surrendered it to the one. It's like, no, man, I want to live a life of true freedom. I want to be out there and have control over with whom. I don't want to be guided by the dollar. I want to be guided by doing what I love and enjoying every minute of my day. And, having to earn $40,000 just to have a basic living in a, it's ridiculous to me. I'm a single person with 2 animals and a home. But my mortgage is less than what it would be if I was renting in the town in which I live. And trust me, I've been in bare minimum mode for 7 years. I've been tracking this. I need to make about $38,000. I need to gross about $38,000 a year just to cover bare minimum expenses. That doesn't get me health insurance, which I don't have. That doesn't allow me to put any extra money into savings. That doesn't allow me to upkeep my 1957 home that definitely needs some things done. It needs some upkeep done. That it's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous that you have to be out there earning that much. And then for most people, they're doing that in a 40+ hour work week. What kind of time do you have left over for what your dreams, your passion? And I'm telling you, a world of people filled with passion and love is a much different world than people running around working their asses off just to pay bills. But this is admittedly, I'm not coming at you from any sort of, wild achieving background in the third dimension. I've struggled in that. But I come at you as an intelligent human being with a YouTube channel of 7.5 years of showing that the extent to which I've been doing this work and working basically to speak to I use a lot of metaphors, but coming from as an athlete, a former athlete, I like sports metaphors. So coming at you from a sports metaphor, I'm speaking about a different game. So right now I'm trying to get my speaking and my writing skills out in the world, at least offering them, showing what I've got in an effort to attract some opportunities to earn a little money. And then it's about taking, really, I believe and know that I've got skill sets, I believe, that can garner more than a little bit of money. Yet I'm not interested in building a huge bank account and having millions in the bank. Money is energy, and energy is meant to move. I just cannot wait to be able to take my own earnings and have complete control over how I'm putting it back into society, not hoarding it into some bank account. And I'm not judging, I'm not intending to judge anybody who does that, for whom that makes sense. I am just saying that I'm telling you, we've got a lot of potential that's untapped. And Best Damn Reality is a 3-month Ripple. Basically, Ripple won't go live. The intention for Ripple is to go live in 3 months' time, and for the podcast to lead in and try to entice people. And as during those 3 months, in addition to releasing one recording a week on my channel, for one podcast episode a week, I will be building Ripple in the background. And the great thing about it is Ripple is my 4 words describing it: simple, direct, honest, transparent. It's not a super complicated project. The list of beneficiaries that I've been working on, for years, the hardest part is going to be really securing the beneficiaries. But that's the most enjoyable part. That's the work I want to do, because my goal is to choose people for whom that dollar that they get, the goal is to have it have the furthest ripple effect on as many human beings in a thriving fashion for as long as possible. Like a speaking event, great, you feel good when you're in the moment. My goal, like at my speaking events, my goal with the podcast, take the energy that's coming through me. If anything resonates for you, I want it to be able to, for you to then take that and channel it into something in your own life. Right? And until you reignite those within, that energy within you and get your own dreams flowing again, in the meantime, I'm going to just give you something as an option. That's what Ripple's all about, is knowing that just your attention to it will matter. If then you choose to give $1 and pass the word on, oh my God, that's how it's going to grow. And then together, you're a participant. You're somebody that played into a brand new thing. I don't know of anything like Ripple. It's a combination of like Kickstarter and GoFundMe, but I've never seen something like this where somebody essentially runs a campaign, raises the money, holds on to a very little amount for myself. My fee is only going to be 4 months worth of working, and I think I've been working on this for years, so 4 months is nothing. I'm going to work for 4 months before I even release and open it to people, so I think that's more than adequate. The amount that I'm looking to take is 4/1000th of the amount that I'm raising. A great deal goes into taxes, but that's a great example too, because it says, hey, I don't need loopholes. I don't care about your taxes. Money's just energy. If you're going to tax me, I'll just make more. Here you go. I'm not going to waste energy bitching about it. Here's your taxes. Go do what you're going to do. I recognize that as long as that system's in place, I got to play. If I could, I'd opt out, but I can't. So why waste energy being upset about it? Here you go. Take your taxes and focus all my attention on the remaining 2.5 million. The whole goal is to have that and to track as many stories as possible of how that's used and how it affects people in time down the line. So I don't know. I feel like it's a unique idea. I know I'm 100% confident in my ability to service the channel and the conduit of it. I have no problem whatsoever imagining that. And I need to just grow comfortable in the next 2.5 weeks with the reality that I might stumble in the early episodes. It might not come out crisp and clean. I might only have 2 or 3 listeners. And all of that needs to be okay. Because, like I said, it's the perfection in the imperfection. The perfection in the imperfections. So we're coming up here on 29 minutes. I feel pretty good. This is, likely not going to be published only for me, but it feels good to just sort of, it's been nerve-wracking to just sort of imagine, when I imagine it from a competitive stance, like there's so many other things people could choose to be listening to, and I imagine everybody just critiquing everything out of my mouth, and it's just not about that. I cannot give attention to that. I need to keep it light and fun because that's how life is supposed to be. But yet knowing that there's a lot of serious shit going on and a lot of people not getting the opportunity. They don't have the luxury to enjoy light and fun. And all of this is intended to address all of that head on and to be the change that I wish and I've wished for a long time that I saw in the world. So thank you and a good practice session. So we'll talk to you again later on.